The world of celebrity interviews has witnessed countless unforgettable moments. Emotional confessions, unexpected revelations, awkward silences, and conversations that continue long after the cameras stop rolling. But few things capture public attention like a clash of perspectives involving the British royal family. Imagine a conversation where two very different worlds collide. On one side, a Hollywood legend whose career was built through decades of dedication, discipline, and artistic achievement. On the other, a prince who has spent years navigating the complicated relationship between royal tradition, personal freedom, and public criticism. That contrast is what made the imagined encounter between Helen Mirren and Prince Harry such a fascinating topic for royal watchers. It was not simply about two famous people sitting on a sofa. It represented a much larger debate that has followed the modern monarchy for years. The meaning of duty, the weight of tradition, and the question of what happens when someone born into an institution chooses to walk away from it. Helen Mirren has always had a unique connection with the royal story. Her legendary portrayal of Queen Elizabeth II introduced her to the world as someone who deeply studied the responsibilities, pressures, and sacrifices associated with the crown. Through her work, Mirren explored a woman whose entire life was shaped by service. Whether people admired the monarchy or questioned it, the role of the Queen represented something larger than personal ambition. For decades, Queen Elizabeth II became known for consistency, patience, and commitment. She rarely responded to criticism publicly and maintained a carefully controlled image built around responsibility. That understanding of duty became central to the conversation surrounding the monarchy. Prince Harry, however, represents a very different chapter of the royal story. Born into one of the most recognized families in the world, Harry spent his childhood surrounded by tradition, privilege, and intense public attention. But as he grew older, he became increasingly vocal about the challenges of royal life, media pressure, and personal struggles. After stepping away from his senior royal role, Harry began building a new public identity outside the traditional structure of the monarchy. Through interviews, documentaries, and his memoir, he shared his perspective on life inside the institution. Supporters argued that he was telling his truth and creating a more independent future. Critics questioned whether someone could separate themselves from the royal system while still benefiting from the fame, opportunities, and global attention that came with it. And that is where the imagined conversation with Helen Mirren became so compelling. The central question was not simply whether Harry was right or wrong. Instead, it focused on a deeper issue. Can someone criticize an institution while still benefiting from the advantages that institution provided? This question has divided royal audiences around the world. Those who defend Harry argue that leaving a powerful organization does not erase the difficulties someone experienced while being part of it. They believe personal struggles can exist alongside privilege. Those who criticize him argue that public complaints become complicated when they are shared through highly profitable platforms connected to the very fame created by the institution. This tension has become one of the biggest discussions surrounding the modern royal family. In this dramatic scenario, Helen Mirren represents the perspective of someone who spent years studying the monarchy from the outside. She represents the idea that understanding an institution requires looking beyond personal experiences and examining history, responsibility, and long-term impact. The imagined exchange highlights a question many people have debated. What is the difference between escaping a difficult situation and turning that experience into a global brand? For some viewers, the answer depends entirely on perspective. A person can argue that sharing personal experiences creates awareness and encourages conversations about mental health, family relationships, and personal boundaries. Others believe that certain stories involving private family matters should remain private, especially when they involve people who cannot respond. The debate becomes even more complicated when the individuals involved are members of the royal family, because every personal decision becomes a public discussion. The monarchy itself has always existed between two worlds. It is both a family and a national institution. Members of the royal family are individuals with emotions, struggles, and personal ambitions. But they are also symbols representing history and tradition. That conflict has become one of the defining stories of the modern era. The imagined confrontation between Helen Mirren and Prince Harry gained attention because it represented this larger cultural divide. One side focuses on personal freedom and speaking openly about experiences. The other focuses on responsibility, restraint, and protecting the dignity of an institution that has existed for centuries. At the center of the discussion is a question that continues to follow Harry. After leaving royal duties behind, what does independence truly mean? Is independence about creating a new life away from the institution? Or does true separation require leaving behind the influence and advantages connected to the royal name? These questions have no simple answers. The public reaction to royal stories often reveals more about society itself than about the individuals involved. People bring their own beliefs about family, loyalty, fame, and responsibility into the conversation. For some, Harry's journey represents courage and honesty. For others, it represents a struggle between wanting freedom while remaining connected to the power of a famous name. And that is why conversations involving the royal family continue to attract worldwide attention. Because behind the titles, ceremonies, and headlines are very human questions about identity, belonging, and purpose. The imagined exchange between Helen Mirren and Prince Harry became powerful because it symbolized a collision between two completely different ideas of legacy. One built through decades of work and public service. The other inherited through birth but later reshaped through personal choices. And as the debate continues, one thing remains clear. The modern royal story is no longer only about crowns and ceremonies. It is about choices, consequences, and how history remembers those who live within its spotlight. The debate surrounding Prince Harry and the monarchy is not simply about one interview, one statement, or one disagreement. It reflects a much larger conversation about tradition versus change, loyalty versus independence, and personal truth versus public responsibility. For decades, the royal family operated under a familiar formula. Members of the institution were expected to maintain a certain level of privacy, avoid public conflict, and place duty above personal feelings. But the modern world has changed. Social media, streaming platforms, and global interviews have transformed the way public figures communicate. Today, individuals have more control over telling their own stories. They can speak directly to millions of people without relying on traditional media. For Prince Harry, this new era created an opportunity to explain his experiences from his own perspective. For supporters, that was an important step. They argued that members of the royal family should be allowed to discuss their personal struggles and challenges just like anyone else. They viewed his decision to speak publicly as a way of creating awareness about issues such as mental health, family pressure, and the difficulties of living under constant public attention. However, critics saw the situation differently. They questioned whether private family disagreements should become worldwide entertainment. They argued that once personal experiences are transformed into books, documentaries, and interviews, the line between sharing a story and profiting from conflict becomes difficult to define. This is where the discussion becomes complicated. The royal family has always depended on a careful balance between public service and personal privacy. Members of the institution are expected to represent something larger than themselves, but they are also human beings with their own emotions and struggles. That balance has become increasingly difficult in the modern age. The imagined conversation involving Helen Mirren highlights a question that many people continue to debate. How much responsibility comes with privilege? Throughout history, royal figures have received extraordinary opportunities because of their position. Access, recognition, and influence often come automatically with the title. But with those advantages also comes expectation. The expectation to serve, to represent, and to understand that personal decisions can affect a much larger public image. This idea was central to the discussion around Queen Elizabeth II. For many admirers, her reign represented a lifetime commitment to duty. She became known for remaining consistent through decades of political change, family challenges, and public criticism. Whether people supported the monarchy or not, even many critics acknowledged the discipline required to maintain such a role for so many years. This is why comparisons between different generations of royals often create such strong reactions. The older generation emphasized endurance, tradition, and responsibility. The newer generation has focused more on openness, personal well-being, and redefining what royal life should look like in the future. Neither perspective is simple. A life of public duty can bring enormous privilege, but it can also involve restrictions that most people will never experience. At the same time, leaving a famous institution does not mean escaping its influence completely. A royal title carries a level of recognition that few people in the world can understand. Even after stepping away from official duties, the name itself remains powerful. That reality has been at the center of many debates surrounding Harry's new chapter. Supporters say he has used his platform to discuss important issues. Critics argue that the platform exists largely because of the royal connection he was born into. This disagreement is unlikely to disappear because both sides are discussing different ideas of fairness. One side focuses on personal experience. The other focuses on public responsibility. And this is why figures like Helen Mirren attract attention when they discuss the monarchy. She represents someone who approached the royal story through years of research, performance, and observation rather than personal involvement. Her portrayal of Queen Elizabeth II required understanding the emotional and historical weight of the role. For many viewers, that created a different type of authority. Not the authority of a royal title, but the authority that comes from years of work and dedication. The broader lesson from this debate is that reputation is built in different ways. Some people inherit a name. Others build one. Some people are recognized because of their position. Others because of their achievements. But in the public eye, both are constantly judged by their actions. The royal family has always been a symbol of continuity. Yet every generation faces the challenge of adapting to a changing world. The question facing modern royals is not only how to preserve tradition, but how to remain relevant in a society that values transparency, authenticity, and personal choice. Prince Harry's story represents this changing relationship between royalty and the public. It raises questions about what people expect from those born into privilege. Should they follow tradition? Should they challenge the system? Should they protect family privacy? Or should they tell their own stories? These are questions that extend far beyond one individual. They are questions about fame, family, and the responsibilities that come with extraordinary circumstances. In the end, the fascination with royal controversies continues because people see reflections of their own struggles within them. Questions about family conflicts. Questions about identity. Questions about finding independence while still respecting where you came from. The world may never fully agree on Prince Harry's choices or the future of the monarchy. Some will see his journey as an act of courage. Others will see it as a complicated relationship with an institution that gave him a unique position in the world. But one thing is certain. The story of the British royal family continues to evolve, and every decision made by its members becomes part of a much larger historical conversation. Because royalty is no longer only about crowns, ceremonies, and tradition. It is about people, their choices, their relationships, their mistakes, and the legacy they leave behind.